Hello everyone. I welcome you all to this part 2 of this two-part video series on the new IT rules that have been introduced by the Government of India. In the part 1 of this video, I talked about what exactly led to the creation of these laws and further talked about the compliance issues that have been arising lately. In this video, I'll be talking about how exactly UK compares to India in terms of regulating these companies or these services, and if at all exactly regulating them or not. So why exactly UK first? As I said in the part 1 of this video, and if you haven't seen the part 1, I request you all to just go and check it out. The link to that video is in the description. So towards the end of the part 1 video, I talked about that in the documents related to the IT rules that were introduced. The government states that, that while making these guidelines for the digital media intermediaries, they looked at models in different countries. And they talked about looking at models in Singapore, Australia, EU, and the UK. So I actually, as I said earlier, I decided to actually compare this with the existing and to be applied rules in any one of the countries above. And as you can see in this video, I went with the UK. Now, why exactly the UK? So I first went over to the Freedom House website, which has these internet freedom scores and a ranking for countries. There I found that UK ranked 5th among the 65 countries. Now, I know some of you might say that Freedom House, seriously, because China, China ranks really low on that website. And if you're bros with the USA, then everything's fine, yo. But because India is a liberal democratic country like the many on that list, this ranking actually makes sense for us. So now that's out of the way, let's get to the actual content. UK. So UK on that internet freedom list ranks 5th and honestly has some serious good points which you two will understand or realize as we delve deeper. Now, the total score or ranking is given based on 3 categories, namely obstacles to access, limits on content, and violation of human rights. These 3 categories further ask a set number of questions and are based on the researched and factual answers. Now, these are again awarded, the points are again awarded for the answers that are given to these questions, which again lead to the total score of 100 points. Now here I'll only be discussing limits on content section, where UK got 30 on 35 compared to India's 21 on 35. Then again I'll also be discussing one more question from the obstacles to access section, where the UK scored 4 on 4 and India scored 2 on 4. On this very particular question from the obstacles to access section. So let's jump to the questions first. So one of the questions in the obstacles to access section, where the UK scored 4 on 4, was do national regulatory bodies that oversee service providers and digital technology fail to operate in a free, fair, and independent manner? I hope the question is clear to you, so I'll just head over to the answer for this. Now, in the UK, there are several independent regulators, but Ofcomm is a major independent regulatory body overseeing the communications industry, and it works with the Department for Digital, Culture, Media and Sport, which again is responsible for policy formation. So Ofcomm is not like some statutory body which has the power to make out policies, but it's just a regulatory body. And it's an independent body, as I said here. You can also see the image of the Ofcomm building near the very, very clean Thames River. So talking more about Ofcomm. As of June 2021, Ofcomm doesn't regulate Netflix, as it is registered in the Netherlands, as stated on the Ofcomm website. So here I'm trying to draw a parallel between India, how India is trying to control all these OTT platforms, and how UK is regulating these platforms, if at all actually not regulating these platforms. And honestly, there's no body that regulates, as I said, the OTT platforms in the UK. For which the BBC has called on the government to, not have set up any regulation. So any form of regulation I mean, something very near to regulation we saw recently was that the British Board of Film Certification made an announcement that they will be partnering up with Netflix. And in this partnership, the board will help to allow Netflix to set up their own ratings for all the content available on their platform. Though the government is actually looking to put the OTT platforms under Ofcom, which we will discuss in some time. Now let's look at some of the questions posed in the limits of content section. Does the state block or filter or compel service providers to block or filter internet content? Now here, the UK scored 5 on 6 and India scored 3 on 6. According to the report, blocking of the internet in the UK generally does not affect political and journalistic content or other internationally protected forms of online expression. Service providers do block and filter some content that falls into one of the three categories: copyright infringement material, the promotion of terrorism and depiction of child sexual abuse. Now there's optional filtering that can be applied to additional content, particularly material that is considered unsuitable for children. And there are optional filters that are provided by the ISPs, that's the internet service providers, that can affect like a range of legitimate content pertaining to public health, LGBT plus topics, drug awareness, and even information published by the civil society groups and political parties. As I said, some of these issues are actually legit issues. So some of these civil society groups have criticized the subjectivity of the filtering criteria. Another question that caught my attention was, do restrictions on the internet and digital content lack transparency, proportionality to the stated aims, or an independent appeals process? Which basically means if you feel pissed at why the site is blocked or why this content is exclusively blocked on this website, then first, is the government giving reasons? And if not, or even in the case not giving reasons, then is there a system to ask them why and have the government explain to the complainer, government explain to the complainer their logic behind this whole block. Now here, the UK scored 3 on 4, again doing very well, and India scored 2 on 4. The regulatory framework and actual procedures for managing online content are largely proportional, transparent, and open to correction. But in April 29, the government released its online harms white paper, which was aimed at creating a new regulatory framework to tackle problematic content. The proposal would basically create an independent regulator to enforce companies' compliance with a new statutory duty of care. The proposal defines the affected companies as those that allow users to talk or communicate with each other online, including social media and messaging platforms, online forums, search engines, and file hosting sites. Civil society groups criticized the proposal on a wide range of fronts. So then, in February 2020, the government released a response to its consultation process with industry stakeholders and civil society, which had run from April to July 2019. In the response, the government clarified that the proposed regulations would be limited to platforms that share user-generated content. The government also delegated regulatory authority to Ofcomm, about whom we had talked earlier, which will now issue fines and prosecute companies that fail to comply. Another question that invoked interest was, are online sources of information controlled or manipulated by the government or other powerful actors to advance a particular political interest? Also, this is a very important question, as when the issue of misinformation spread through social media platforms, when this whole issue of misinformation spreading through social media platforms was raised in the Rajya Sabha, Derek O'Brien from the TMC alleged that the BJP came in power in 2014 and they used social media to condition the minds of the people. Now again, jumping to the Freedom House points, here the UK scored 3 on 4 and India scored 2 on 4. But not like the UK is perfect here, because during the December 2019 general election, the governing Conservative Party right now and the opposition Labour Party spread misleading content and disinformation on social media, including, doctored videos which were being shared by the Conservative Party. And then the very famous, a parliamentary inquiry into social media interference intensified in March 2018 when Christopher Wiley, a former employee at the data analytics company Cambridge Analytica, claimed that the firm had illegally obtained information from Facebook on millions of accounts and had developed techniques for categorizing and influencing potential voters. I hope you all remember how big this was. And then a report on disinformation and fake news was published in February 2019 by the UK Parliament's Digital Culture, Media and Sports Committee, which was specifically addressed to, Facebook's purported role in the facilitating of this whole spread of information act. This report called for electoral law reforms as well as establishment of intermediary liability to help address the problem. So in conclusion, we see that UK doesn't really regulate their OTT platforms as of now. And even their social media platforms, not much as of now. But sure, the last statement tells us that they're definitely looking to establish some form of intermediary liability. And they will definitely go towards that, as we talked about the bill or the paper that the government has been talking about. One more instance where we see that the government is looking to establish some form of, intermediary liability is recently we saw that the Culture Secretary Oliver Dowden said that, Netflix should put a health warning before they show the show Crown on their platform. To which Netflix replied saying that they always presented it as a drama. It's not something that is real. Now, going towards the conclusion of this two-part video series, and as you saw that I tried comparing UK with India, I honestly couldn't understand what sort of conclusion did the government of India draw from the UK. But I do see that the government has drawn some inspiration from Singapore, which is Netflix's most censored market, and less from the UK and Australia, where the governments are looking to have local content being more injected into the platform. On top of that, Australia has forced social media heavyweights like Google and Facebook to negotiate and settle a price with news publishers whose content they carry. So let's see when all of this actually travels to India someday. Thank you so much. I hope you like this video series.